Hello, we are live once again. This is Holly Holiday, and we are back for our Thursday talk on Real People Elected Facebook Live. These are practical tips for candidates and campaign operatives. Everything you ever wanted to know about running a campaign, being a candidate, working for a campaign, volunteering for a campaign, being a part of getting someone elected, being a part of the campaign. We're going to talk about it here every Thursday around this time on Facebook Live. My name's Holly Holiday. I have been a campaign operative, if you will, for more than 20 years. I've worked on pretty much every kind of campaign you can think of. And, late last year, after looking at and working on some particularly tough races, some wins, some losses, I thought, you know what? The big problem that I have is that there's so many great people out there who would make great candidates, but they won't be candidates because they're intimidated by the process. And the process can be intimidating. And let me tell you a secret. It's intimidating on purpose because people who are currently serving in office, they want to keep their seats. They want to stay in office. And one way to make sure that they can stay in office is to make the rules a little bit tough, to make the process a little bit intimidating, so that only sort of insiders have the ability to be in public office. But the reality is that if our democracy is going to work, we don't need more Democrats and we don't need more Republicans. We need more real people who represent real values, whatever party they belong to. We need people who are going to work together the way we work together in our neighborhoods to solve the real problems that we're having. So I decided to launch this series of Real People Elected. And there are going to be so many great things coming, so many exciting things that I'm going to be doing over the course of this year. In fact, next week I'm going to make the website is going to be launched, and we're going to have just a ton of resources. I'm pretty much pulling from everything I've ever gotten and ever done in politics to make sure that the information is out there. And more is importantly than just the information being out there, let me be honest with you guys. A lot of times you go to these trainings and they are just so freaking generic that you don't actually know how to apply it to your campaign. So that's what's going to be different about what we talk about. I'm going to give you some generic information because, frankly, that's important. But what I really want to be able to do is to dig down and answer questions about specific campaigns, specific things that I'm hearing that are going on, specific problems that we're having in those campaigns, because we don't want the campaign to keep us from being able to elect good, solid people. I mean, let's be honest. I can't think of anybody who's not over these political parties. I know I am. And even though I've been a lifelong Democrat and probably will continue to support the Democrats, the reality is I really just want to elect people who get it. I don't really care what party they're with anymore. I just want to elect people who get what's going on, who understand the kinds of problems that we go through every day, who just want to figure out, hey, how do I create a business in my community? What are some of those resources? What are some of the things that people can do to help? Are these people in favor of pro-business and helping new people get into business? I don't know, but if those are things that you care about, then this is for you. And if there are other things that you care about, we care about safe schools and good neighborhoods, and we care about street curbs and making sure, that there are sidewalks and that the streets are properly paved. And hey, right about now in most of the country, we care about snow removal. Let me tell you who controls that. Snow removal is typically controlled by either your city, your city council, your state legislators, if it's a state highway, or your county legislators or commissioners or council if for county roads. So depending on who runs the road is who should be removing that snow. And I had to get up at 5 o'clock this morning, and let me tell you, the snow was not removed in my county. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be looking very carefully at the county execs in my county where I live to figure out who I'm going to be voting for. And if you're like me and you want to see real people run, then this is absolutely the broadcast for you. So this is actually my third broadcast. It's pretty exciting. I think I forgot to say Happy New Year. Well, Happy New Year and welcome to the broadcast. For those of you all who are just joining or haven't joined, feel free to share this with as many people as you know. Be sure to like my business page, which is Holiday Advisors. Shoot me a Facebook Messenger, and if you're interested in our candidate checklist, it's pretty comprehensive. I thought it was going to just be a quick 2-pager, and it ended up being way more comprehensive than that. So please check it out. I'm in Atlanta today, so I'm visiting you from my hotel room, in case you're wondering what these wonderful portraits are behind me. But let's dig into what we're here to talk about, because one thing that you learn on a campaign is that, frankly, you just do not have time to waste. So I've been talking about phase 1 of the overall campaign. And I want to just kind of quickly give you a quick overview and say that in my world, campaigns take on 4 distinct phases. The first phase is the get ready phase, and we're going to be in the get ready phase for at least another week. But the get ready phase is about what you do before you even decide to run. What are some of those building block fundamentals that you need to get yourself ready to go? Then phase 2, which we'll be talking about more in a few weeks, is that plan and staff. How do you put your plan together? What needs to be in your plan? And how do you get help to make those plans happen? Then phase 3 is fundraise and outreach. Now, that's a little misleading, because actually you should start fundraising as soon as you decide to run for campaign office. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how to fundraise. I'm going to be having some other fundraising experts also that I've worked with over the years come and give you some of their best tips and just share information with you. But fundraising is a critical part of it. But the other part of it is outreach, and that's just as important. If you talk to campaign people, they'll say the only thing that's important is money and votes, and they're both equally important. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about those 2 things. And then the final phase is just that, is voting and election day. To call it election day is a little misleading, because these days, election day is actually more than one day. From absentee ballots to mail-in ballots to early voting, there are actually a lot of different election days, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to maximize that as a candidate, and how to make sure that your voters are getting out on one of those days to make sure that they vote. Election day is kind of the final countdown, but there are usually in most states other opportunities to vote even leading up to election day. But we're not here to talk about phase 4 today. Today we're here to continue talking about phase 1. And phase 1 is the get ready phase. So in phase 1, we've already talked about, and you can go back on my page and on the Holiday Advisor page and look at those videos. All of these videos are going to be roughly 20 minutes, because I want to give it to you fast and give it to you real and then get out. But if you need more information or you want me to cover something else, feel free to hit me up on the Holiday Advisors Facebook page, or direct message me, and we'll make sure that we cover those topics. I'd like to thank everyone for joining. I see some people I haven't seen. Oh boy, N. Arcard. Hi, N. N and I were in school together years and years ago, so don't tell my age. But you can certainly verify that I've been political for a really long time. So we've talked in the past about the get ready phase. The get ready phase has a couple of different pieces in it. The first thing we talked about in our first video was deciding to run. Deciding to run is a crucial piece. And I'm going to remind you about some questions that you should ask yourself about when you're thinking about running. One, why are you running? And let me tell you, that is a question that is so important. You'd be surprised how many people become candidates, and when voters ask them why they're running, they stumble. They don't know. It's like a deer caught in headlights. So really having a clear understanding of why you're even in this race. Why is the race important to you? What about the race has called to you and made you feel like it's your time to serve? The second question is, do you have the support of your family and friends? This is critical. Let me be honest. Let me be absolutely blunt, in fact. Campaigns are hell. They can be so tough. Now, I'm not getting me wrong. They can be a lot of fun too, and you learn a lot during the process. But this is not something that you want to enter into if you don't feel like you have the support of your family and friends. So spend a lot of time before you decide to run, talking to them and making sure that they're on board. The third question, do I have time to participate in a campaign? Campaigns can be a time suck. They really, really can. So you need to be able to devote, I recommend anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week just to your campaign. And as you get closer to phase 4 and election day, that number is going to quadruple. So they are time drain and they are time suck. So make sure that you're ready to make that commitment. And then the final question to ask yourself in the first stage of phase 1 is, can I manage my financial responsibilities? So that's a whole big thing. You can check out the first video. We go into those questions a little bit more in depth. Last week, we talked about knowing your district, understanding your roles and responsibilities, finding out who lives in the district, getting a map of the district, and understanding who votes in your district. Now, who votes in your district is a smaller subset of who lives in your district, but for the purposes of campaign, that's who we care about. We care about who votes. We certainly want to improve the lives of everyone in the district that you might be running for, but the reality is when we're in campaign mode, we need to be talking to the people who vote, because at the end of the day, those are the people who are going to get us the job or not. All right, so what are we talking about today? Because it feels like we've talked about so much already. Okay, today we're going to be talking about knowing the rules. And you might think that this is so freaking obvious. Oh my God, but it's not. It's not obvious at all, because so many people do not understand the rules. And even voters don't always understand that there's a certain level of rules that need to be followed. And so sometimes they can be confusing. And in fact, I would argue that the rules is one of the ways, is one of the incumbents' biggest protection. Because when people don't understand the process, they don't understand the rules, it's intimidating to get engaged with this. So what are some things that you need to understand, and how do you learn them? So first of all, understand what the qualifications are to run. I cannot stress how important this is. There are so many people that I've seen that have tried to run for different offices or expressed interest in running for offices and didn't realize that they weren't even qualified to run in the first place. Now, to be honest, most offices, the qualifications aren't that deep, but some of them are. So for one, most offices require that you live in a specific place. So make sure that you actually live in the place, in the part of the office that you'd like to run. Now, let's be honest. Lots of people want to represent places that they don't live. And you know what they do? They move, which is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I've certainly worked with candidates who have moved to the districts that they felt more connected with. But you need to know that in advance. You don't need to be trying to figure out that you don't live where you're supposed to live when you're in the middle of trying to collect signatures. That could get embarrassing. The other is, what do you need to qualify? Do you need to get petitions? Petitions are available at the Board of Elections. How many petitions do you need to get? Do you need to get petitions from specific people? Usually, if you live in a petition state where you need to get a certain number of people to sign and agree that you should be a candidate, you need to get them from a specific place, meaning you need to get them from voters. Must be voters who sign petitions who live in your district. Now, to be honest, this may sound intimidating, but in most cases, the petition requirement is really a low bar to get over. Typically, people do this by visiting their churches or going to or hanging out near grocery stores or other neighborhood hotspots, just to make sure that they get the voters who live in that district to support them. But the key thing is know the rules and know what your requirements are to run. The second thing is review the campaign financing laws, and that includes the ethic disclosures, so that you're aware of what that position requires in terms of ethics. Ethics is where we see a lot of candidates get in trouble because they simply don't understand that certain things need to be disclosed. For instance, if you are interested in running for school board and you happen to work for a company that does business with the school district, that's something that you need to disclose. It doesn't necessarily eliminate you from being able to run, but because you have disclosed it, it allows arrangements to be made so that you don't put yourself in a position where there is a conflict. But you need to be able to understand the ethic disclosures and make sure that you are honest and truthful when filling them out. The second thing is understanding the campaign finance rules. We talked a little bit earlier about fundraising, and understanding your campaign finance rules are critical, absolutely critical. And these rules change all the time. I mean, all the time. So if you're really interested in running, you've got to be on top of these campaign finance rules. And the best place to understand the qualifications, to get the campaign finance rules, and to make sure that you understand the ethics disclosures, those three things specifically, is to check with your Board of Elections. Most of them have this information available online. Most of them will also set up some time to sit down and meet with you and talk with you to walk you through what the rules mean. Many of them actually do trainings on this. And let me say, this is important for candidates to know, but it's also important for some of your senior people to get behind and for them to understand it as well. So if you have a good friend that's going to operate as your campaign manager, or a good friend that's going to help you raise money, they also should be aware of the campaign disclosures. They should be aware of campaign financing rules, and they should make sure that you are qualified to run. The campaign finance rules is particularly important because this is going to govern who can give you money, how much they can give you money, and over what amount of time they can give you that money. In some states and some jurisdictions, there may even be limits on the type of money you can get. So for instance, in some jurisdictions, there may be limits on how much corporate money you can get. There are actually jurisdictions that don't allow any corporate money, which means if you own a business, even if you're not a corporation, but you're a small business, you can't contribute if that's against the law in that space. Many times you need to collect a certain amount of information from people. So you need to make sure that you're clear on the campaign finance rules, because that is a key way that new candidates get in trouble, and it slows their progress because they think they can do one thing and they make these big plans and then they realize, I didn't know that that was against the rules, so now they waste time having to go back and restart. But if you spend the time on the front end, understanding qualifications to run, identifying the campaign finance rules, as well as the ethics disclosures, this is going to save you a lot of time. Okay, I've got one more tip for you under the Know the Rules. And this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but this is a gem, and that is meet with the former elected officials for tips and information. Maybe you're running against the incumbent and you're like, well, why would I meet with them? Well, maybe you don't meet with the current person in office, but I would go back and try to identify people who've held that office before, who are not in office, who maybe are not part of your race, and talk to them. They're going to be able to tell you a lot of things about that office that only people who've held that position can tell you. You're going to get advice from different campaign people. You'll get experts that come in and want to tell you, I know exactly how to do this. And they may know how to do it, and they may be very helpful in getting you across the finish line in terms of election day. But the truth is, especially as a candidate, there's only one person who's been in the place where you want to get. And those are people who formerly held that office. So it is important, if you don't feel like you have a relationship with the incumbent and can't talk to them, or maybe they're running against you, so they're not interested in sharing information with you, go and talk to people who've run before. And not only necessarily about getting their support, but really getting information, getting the things and tricks and tips and workarounds that they've learned in terms of serving in that office. They can tell you who the movers and the shakers are. They can tell you the neighborhoods that are the most active. They can tell you the leaders in the community that you may not currently know that you might need to get to know. So spend some time, some quality time, and maybe even a few times sitting down with people who have previously held that office. They will really help you get through. Okay, so to recap, this has been Know the Rules, practical tips for candidates and operatives on Real People Elected, Facebook Live. The big things to understand about knowing the rules is understanding the qualifications to run, reviewing your campaign finance laws, and understanding your ethics disclosures. And then the big tip for the day is to meet with people who formerly held that office. Now, all of these things that we're talking about at this point in the get ready phase are things that you do anywhere from 11 months to even as far as 24 months out as you're preparing yourself to run. We're not quite in the race yet, but these are some preparatory things that if you spend some quality time a little bit further out from the race getting this done, this will save you time in the long run and make you a better prepared candidate. All right, well, that's our 20 minutes for today. Thank you for joining me. Real excited to have so many people join. Don't forget to like our page at Holiday Advisors on Facebook. Please feel free to share this video with your friends, and hit me up if you're interested in our candidate campaign checklist. I'd love to get it out to you. All right, thanks for joining. See you next Thursday. Bye.